Hello, my friends. Welcome to an episode of people claiming that they're lawyers or that they know lawyers because they think it's intimidating when they don't get their way. Guys, get ready to hear some great stories about liars using this line to try to get what they want. And you guessed it, they just end up looking dumb instead. There are 10 stories in this episode today. In the first story, a man tries to return worn-out hiking shoes, threatening legal action when denied. The second story features a woman demanding to keep 2 washing machines, claiming she'll sue for her troubles. Third, a dad storms into a stereo shop, posing as a lawyer to replace his son's damaged speaker. I hope you stay for all of them and subscribe for future videos. Let's get started. This story is titled, Do I Need a Lawyer? I'm a manager in a shoe store and deal with most of the returns and exchanges. Our policy is 45 days with the receipt for a return as long as they can be put back on the sales floor, or even an exchange if they're not able to be put back out. A man comes in carrying a pair of shoes, no box, no receipt, and they look like absolute dog poop. They were a hiking type shoe, and it looked like he had hiked every trail in the entire state in them. I asked if he had a receipt. He said no. I asked him when he bought them. He said sometime last year in Texas. Well, okay. It's out of the 45 days, so I can't do anything with it. Cue the customer asking me what he should do, and I said, buy a new pair of shoes. I can't do anything about those. The man gets angry, and you can tell that he thinks the next line should work on everyone. He looks at me dead in the eyes and says, I know a lawyer. Do I need to get a lawyer for a pair of shoes? I shrug and said, if you want to, but I'm not returning or exchanging those. Have a good one. He leaves the store in defeat. I hate this place. If you guys have tuned into my older episodes, you'll know that I used to work at Quiznos making sandwiches. I've had this exact line thrown at me twice, once by an old guy and another by an old lady, both threatening to get lawyers over a burnt sandwich. I wish I was kidding. Like, yeah, go ahead and sue Quiznos, I don't care. This next one is titled, I Can't Keep Both. Y'all hear from my lawyer. This happened over the span of a few weeks, and it was finally all over yesterday. I sell household appliances for a living. It sucks, but it's decent money. A few weeks ago, a CO worker sold a lady a washing machine for her new house. She keeps it a few days, then calls us saying it's making weird noises. We send our tech out, and he takes a look. Nothing's wrong with it. No quote-unquote weird noises. But we're a large corporation and try to make customers happy, so we agree to swap it out for a new one. The delivery guy gets there and starts taking the old one out, and this is where all heck breaks loose. The lady says, why are you taking my washer? That's mine. I paid for it. Delivery guy says, yeah, but we're exchanging it for a new one, so we take the old one that you claim is broken and swap it for the new one. She then says, that wasn't the deal. I am keeping both for the trouble you all caused me. And he responded, if you don't let me take this one, you can't have the other one. You don't get both. And then she says it. She says, I'll sue you guys for everything you've got. I know a lawyer. At that point, the delivery guy says, okay, we're leaving. The lady calls the store. She's furious. The first thing she says is, I have a lawyer. I'm suing you. This is so unfair. The manager tells her, we've already talked to legal. We've been told not to make contact with you. You have to do everything through legal and corporate now. Sorry. Have a good day. The lady's baffled and says, why you said you were going to sue us? That's all we needed to hear. Our legal department will be happy to take your case now. Contact the department with your name and phone number of your lawyer, and they'll get you taken care of. Thanks. Bye-bye. The lady never called a lawyer, never even called the legal department, but yesterday she sends an email saying she would really appreciate the swap now and that she apologized for acting the way she did. Delivery laughs. The store manager laughs. She's not getting that. I wonder how many times she's actually tried this on people and how many times it's actually worked. Her little scam of trying to get a free washing machine that she'll probably try to sell and pay for her other washing machine totally backfired. This next story is titled, When the Lawyer Steps In. The lawyer steps in to make everything better. I've worked a decade as a salesman at a stereo shop. I've had hundreds of people threatening to sue, but not a single one has. A few stand out, and I was just reminded of this gem. I sold a kid who was 18 or 19 years old a speaker. Mentioned it has manufacturer's warranty against defects. If it's not working, we'll just swap it out. The kid comes back later that day, says the speaker doesn't work, and he wants a warranty replacement. I open the box, and the speaker has a gaping hole in it. He was screwing it in, slipped, and he put the entire drill bit through the speaker cone. It's obvious what happened. I gave him an "I'm sorry, but this is clearly physical damage, not a manufacturer defect. I can't warranty this." He debates, and I hand him the warranty information from the manual. He reads it and accepts his fate. It specifically notes that damage due to improper installation or accident is not covered. He walks out with his destroyed speaker, taking the loss. Half an hour later, his dad comes into the shop screaming that he's going to sue us, and that it's our responsibility to replace it. How it has warranty, and how we formed a verbal contract with our client that we'd swap it out if there was an issue. Dad mentions that he's a big-shot lawyer a few times during the tirade. I said, "Sir, have you read that warranty information?" He replies, "No, that doesn't matter. You falsely told my son that he can bring it back under warranty." I cut him off to say, "So you're not a lawyer then?" He says, "You think I'm lying? Are you accusing me of lying?" I then tell him, lawyers always read a contract before debating it. Misrepresenting yourself as an attorney in order to obtain benefit for another is a criminal offense, sir. It says right here in the contract that we will not be honoring the warranty if it's caused by improper installation, and it looks like your son had an accident. I can see by the physical damage. I pointed out the cameras and mentioned they have audio recording. He went silent, looked a bit shocked, and walked out with his broken speaker, muttering something about how he's never coming back and that we're losing a customer. My coworker leaned over and asked, "Is that true? Is it illegal to impersonate a lawyer?" I said, "Darned if I know. I'm not a lawyer. Hope he's right." It is illegal to impersonate a lawyer, but it's not illegal to say that you are a lawyer as long as you aren't practicing law and defrauding people. And this is also coming from someone who knows nothing about what I just said, but it sounds totally right. This story is titled, "I'm a Lawyer." I'm a lawyer. I know all about these things. For those who don't know, in the UK as of October 2015, any business with over 250 employees has to charge 5 pence for plastic bags. So I work in a store in the UK that sells games, accessories, and things of that nature. I had just finished serving a lady who was buying Sims 3 on the Xbox 360 for her daughter. Transaction was smooth. Said thanks, and they left. About 30 seconds later, a guy comes in with the game, presumably to be her husband. The lawyer guy says, "Got a bag for this?" I said, "Sure, it'll be 5 pence. Lawyer guy says, "No, it won't. I'll take one for free." I'm afraid I can't, since it's against the law, and you'd technically be stealing. We have to charge for bags. He then says, "You can't charge me if the bag has the company's logo on it." I'm a lawyer. I know these things. Which is not true. I told him I still have to charge him 5 pence, and he says, "Fine, I'll have a refund then. I don't want this game anymore, nor your business." I told him, "Sure, if you have the receipt, I can process it through the till." He then walks outside the shop and gives the game to his wife, who I had served previously. She walks in and says, "Is that 5 pence?" So I told her he wanted a refund, and she rolled her eyes, sighed, paid for the bag, said thanks, and walked out. The one thing that baffled me out of all of this is, why would you boast to me that you're a lawyer earning God knows how much money while complaining about something so trivial as a 5-cent bag? I only wish he had the receipt at the moment. Could you imagine him going back to his wife without the game? "Honey, where's the game? You know, here's the thing. I went in there, and he wanted 5 cents for a bag, and I said no, I'm not paying 5 cents for a bag, so I got mad and returned the game." And that's how divorces happen, my friends. I think. I don't know, but that also sounds a little bit right. This next one is titled, "Refund My Worn-Out Underwear." Refund my worn-out underwear, or I'll sue you. A few years ago, I was the manager at a store for a company that specialized in as seen on TV products. As you can imagine, it was a pretty fun job. I was allowed and even encouraged to try out all the products so we could promote them better. The downside, however, was some of the interesting customers that wanted refunds for the weirdest things. One rather slow day, I had just finished restocking the shelves when a customer came storming into the store. The look on his face was comparable to Grumpy Cat's if it was human. I said, "What can I do for you, sir?" He says, "These are defective. I want a refund." He puts a plastic bag down on the desk and took out a very ratty-looking pair of Tommy Cooper boxer briefs. For a bit of context, the company return policy was basically exchange or store credits, with a few refund exceptions based on manufacturer guarantees. Any clothing items were strictly final sale due to hygienic reasons. Any undergarments were definitely final sale. The policy has always been printed out on the receipt, and we had an official 8x10 copy from the head office. with the heading Return Policy set up in plain sight right next to the register. I asked if I could see his receipt. He handed it to me, still scowling. I looked at the purchase date and saw that the purchase had been made over 5 months ago. It was also stamped Final Sale in red ink. I said, "Sorry, boss, but it looks like this was purchased 5 months ago. Not only that, the item's final sale, it says right here." I grabbed a highlighter and traced over the bold Final Sale stamp. He says, "No, this is your product, so it's your responsibility." I'm afraid not, boss. Unfortunately, we're not the manufacturer, we're just the retailer, and I'm afraid this isn't a defect, it's wear and tear. He then asked for the manager, and I pointed to the name tag on my lanyard and said, "I am the manager, sir, and I'm sorry, but that's our company policy." He then says it. He says, "I could sue you for this. I know a lawyer. If there was such a policy, it legally has to be in writing for customers to see." I'm losing my patience at this point. "It is, sir, right here," and I highlighted. "It's on his receipt and here," and I pointed to the aforementioned sign in front of him. I watched his face get red as he looked from his receipt to the sign and back, and then he says, "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." He grabbed up his item and receipt, turned on his heel, and stormed out. And I said, "Okay, take care now, have a great day." I watched his head sink into his shoulders as he stomped out the door. Okay, first of all, that's kind of gross, bringing your 5-month-old used pair of underwear to exchange for a new pair. Oh my goodness. This story is titled, "I'm a Lawyer and You're Committing Fraud." I'm a lawyer and you're committing fraud. How I met the customer that I'll someday invite to my wedding. I was working the register one day when a customer comes up. He's one angry customer, one that I won't be meeting again, or so I thought. He's pretty much huffing and puffing before I can even say hi, and something tells me that I'll know why in about 2 seconds. Our store is very focused on customer satisfaction and will do just about anything to get them happy, so I put on a smile and greet him. "Hi, did you get an order number from one of my colleagues?" And he replies, "This is outrageous. I shouldn't have to bring a piece of paper for the item that I'm buying. This is unacceptable." I said, "I'm sorry. What happened?" His raised voice now is gathering some interest from other customers, and he said, "I visited your website, and the price there is $10 less than here in the store." I told him that I'm very sorry, that we probably haven't changed the price tag yet, but the price of your order is the same as online. He says, "That doesn't matter, it's fraud." I told him, "But the price for the product that you're buying is the same as the online price. If it hadn't been, we'd be more than happy to match that price. I'm sorry for any inconvenience, but this is the same price that you saw online." He says, "That's not the point. It was more expensive. You should tell your manager you're committing fraud." I said, "Sir, I am the manager, and we always price match anything you find online, including prices from competitors. But sometimes we have special deals online. If you as a customer find the same product anywhere else and tell us, we're more than happy to give you that price as a thank you for giving us your business. If we did promise to have the exact same price in our stores as we do online, but we don't, that would be breaking marketing laws, but it wouldn't be considered fraudulent." He says, "Not fraudulent? Are you serious? I'm a lawyer. I've driven here all the way from my house in insert rich part of town, and don't you think I know it is fraud? You have no right to tell me I'm wrong, and I'll go to the papers with your fraud." After this, I just gave up. He was on his way out the door, still screaming about our fraud, and I took a deep breath, and I turned to my next customer. Fast forward 2 months. I'm long overdue to meet my significant other's family, and as recently we've moved in together, it's about time. I'm nervous as heck because I'll meet them all at once, and I don't know anyone there. But it turns out I've met my significant other's grandfather before. Ouch. Maybe he won't recognize you, OP. And you can ask him what he used to do for a living. And you can catch him in his fraudulent act of pretending to be a lawyer since he knows all about fraud, right? This story is titled, "I Know the Owner, and You're Gonna Be Fired." I just had the greatest I know the owner, and you're gonna be fired experience. This woman was extremely upset because she used all her fuel points when she prepaid for gas, but she hung up the pump before the next person using her discount could pull up, which canceled the sale. She argued with me for a minute because I have no way to change anything about someone's loyalty membership. It can only be fixed by going to the customer service desk and having a manager call and request a change from the company. But she kept insisting that I could just choose not to enforce it. Eventually she goes to leave and hits me with the classic, "I know your owner, they'll be hearing about you." I just looked at her and said, "We don't have an owner, ma'am, we're union." She wouldn't even look at me anymore and just silently stormed away. I don't think she even went to customer service. This story is titled, I Am the Owner, and you are no longer welcome here. First of all, this is not my story, but my friend Debbie's. This happened about 15 years ago, so details may be a bit hazy. Debbie worked at the front counter at a local bakery whose specialty was what they called football cakes. These were basic chocolate cakes with the logos of 2 teams drawn in icing on them. They made these for local high school games and some college and pro games. Since the Super Bowl is today, that's what reminded me of this. Debbie worked the front counter while the owner and his kids worked in the back, baking, decorating, etc. The only caveat was you had to order these cakes at least 1 day in advance, though longer was better. The fridge in the back would get full, so they would put them in the display case up front with a sign that said, "Reserved, not for sale." One day, a lady came in and asked for a cake for the Iowa Hawkeyes game later that day. Debbie asked for the name she had reserved it under. The lady said she didn't have a reservation but saw them in the display and asked if she could have one of those. Debbie explained that those were all reserved, and unless she had a reservation, she couldn't have one. The lady blew up and said she needed one right now and that she knew the owner. She threatened that unless Debbie sold her one, she'd get her in trouble, and if Debbie wanted to keep her job, she'd sell her one. The owner heard all this, came up front, and asked what was going on. The lady said Debbie was being unhelpful and wouldn't sell her the cake. The owner asked if she had one reserved, and when she said no, he said, "I'm sorry, but we need at least a 1-day reservation to make it." The lady didn't like that and began yelling at him, saying she knew the owner and would have both of their jobs. She looked at Debbie and the owner, pointed her fingers and said, "You are both fired." The owner gave Debbie a subtle wink, as if saying, "I got this, just play along," and then said, "Oh, you know old Sid, who owns this place? Well, when you see him, tell him I've been sleeping with his wife, and I'm sure she screams out my name during intimate moments." Debbie said it took every ounce of self-control not to burst out laughing. The lady then said, "I'm sure he doesn't want to hear that, and if you sell me the cake I want, I won't tell him." The owner replied, "Tell him all you want, but you're not getting that cake. If you want another one, I'm sure we can find something else for you." The lady said, "No, I want a football cake. If I don't get one, I'll tell the owner about you two and have you both fired today." The owner finally gave up on his ruse and said, "Ma'am, you want to fire me? I'm the darn owner. I've never seen you before, and with luck, I'll never see you again. Please leave my establishment." At this, Debbie lost what control she had and burst out laughing. When the lady turned to look at her, Debbie nodded vigorously as if to say, "He's the owner." The lady turned bright red and bolted out the door, never to come back. I miss that bakery. I've said it once, and I'll say it again. If you claim to know the owner, at least make sure you know what the owner looks like so you're not firing him when you're yelling. This story is titled, I Know the Owner. He would be fine with me paying tomorrow. The farm store is a community of employees, vendors, and customers. It's in a small town, so most people know each other and either know or have met the farm owner. That's cool, but people try to take advantage of that fact, especially mere acquaintances of the owner, who will be named Farmer John for this post. I've received my fair share of people pretending they know the owner better than they do, to which I always say, "Yeah, I know him too." One night this woman, let's call her Fancy Pants, comes in 10 minutes before closing and starts doing some serious grocery shopping. Annoying enough on its own, but we're used to it, so we just close what we can. She finally makes it to the checkout counter. I get everything rung up and bagged, but her credit card isn't working. I said, "It looks as though your card isn't going through." Fancy Pants says, "I don't have another credit card on me and I don't have any cash." I told her we could take a check if she had one with her, and she said, "No, this is all I have with me. Can't I just go home and come by to pay tomorrow?" I told her, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. If you live in a neighborhood close by, I can hold the groceries while you run home to grab the payment. We're okay with that." She says, "It doesn't matter if I live close. I don't have time to do that. I've got a conference call. I know Farmer John, and I'm sure he'd be fine with me coming back to pay tomorrow." I said, "Ma'am, I don't have the authority to approve that, and no managers on site currently either. You'll have to produce a way to pay or come back tomorrow when we open. I can store your items, so you don't even have to reshop." At this point, she lays into me about how ridiculous this is and how she's going to complain to Farmer John. All I do is repeat, pay or leave your bags here. Suddenly, Fancy Pants gets that I'm not letting her leave with $80 worth of groceries and magically pulls a different credit card out of her pocket. It works, she gets her stuff, and she hates me from that point on. The best part is that 2 weeks later she comes in and Farmer John's there. She says hi to him and tries to engage in conversation, and he clearly does not know or recall who this woman was. Did this lady just try to pull a scam that didn't end up working? Oh, I don't have any money. The owner says I can pay tomorrow, but then magically pulls out a credit card to pay in the end. I'm gonna go try that at the GameStop by my house. I really want a Nintendo Switch. This story is titled, You're Lying, I Do Know the Owner. This is from my days waiting tables in a very small local cafe around 2004. We had maybe 25 tables split between 2 indoor dining areas and a patio. My mom and I were waiting tables and we had a dishwasher and a chef. I know chef sounds generous with the seating description, but he was the real deal. He worked under Emerald before he bought the cafe. We were breakfast and lunch only and closed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturdays and Sundays. This took place around 2:15 on a Saturday. We're cleaning the dining room, the chef is breaking down the kitchen, and our dishwasher's running a last load of dishes and washing off kitchen stuff. The doors are locked, but we had huge windows all the way around the dining room, so you can see us from the street and the patio. As I'm wiping down my last tabletop, I hear banging on the door. There's a group of 50-somethings in designer clothes staring through the doors at us. My mom, after a few bangs, goes over to see what they want. Maybe they're lost, looking for the local RV park or whatever. The entitled woman says, "We'd like a table for 5 outside. Bring some tea and water with lemon." My mom says, "Sorry, we closed at 2 o'clock today. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock, though." The entitled woman then says, "We came from the town 5 miles away. You've got to seat us. It's barely past 2. My mom then says, "The kitchen's broken down and we close at 2 o'clock. "Sorry," she responded, "but we came all this way. We rode our bikes in the heat on the local bike path to get here." My mom stood firm and said, "Nope, sorry, we're closed as of 2. The entitled woman then says, "Well, I know the owner, and he lives right over on XYZ Street. I'm gonna go tell him how you're acting and that you refuse to serve us. I'm pretty sure he won't be happy that you're running the business this way." At this point, I've stopped wiping my table and I'm staring. My dishwasher's peeking through the other window, snickering, and my chef is standing in the doorway to the kitchen. He hears her last snarky comment, and I see his face go from, "I'm tired. I got here at 2 in the morning" to, "Oh no, you're not doing this right now." He strides across the tiny dining room, gently nudges my mom aside and says, "I'm the owner. What would you like to tell me exactly?" The entitled woman says, "You're not the owner. Ten is the owner. I know him from college. You're lying." The owner then says, "Oh, yes, 10 does own this building. However, this is my business. We closed at 2, as you can see from the store hours." She then said, "But we came all this way to get your biscuits. Why won't you make some for us?" The owner told her to come back when they're open or not at all, since her attitude was as bad as it was, and to get off the property, or he'd have her removed. He slammed the door in her face. It was beautiful. It wasn't the first time he'd handled an entitled person, but it was my favorite. Also, they went and got into their car, so no, they didn't bike all the way here either. As a reader, I find these stories both entertaining and frustrating, as they highlight a common theme of entitled customers using empty threats like, "I know a lawyer" or "I know the owner" to bully employees into bending rules. Here's my take on each story, written in a conversational tone as if I were commenting on a forum. Do I need a lawyer? Oh man, this one's classic. The guy with the trashed hiking shoes trying to pull the "I know a lawyer" card is hilarious. Like, dude, you hiked Mount Everest in those things and expect a refund without a receipt? The manager's calm go ahead and try response was perfect. Love how they didn't even flinch. And the Quiznos flashback? I'm dying. People threatening to sue over burnt sandwiches is peak absurdity. It's like some customers think lawyer is a magic word to get their way. Gotta respect the manager for standing firm and not dealing with that nonsense. I can't keep both? Y'all hear from my lawyer. This lady trying to scam a free washing machine by claiming she deserved both is wild. The delivery guy and manager shutting her down with talk to legal was such a power move. I love how she backtracked with that apology email after her bluff failed. Bet she's pulled that "I'll sue" trick before and got away with it. It's so satisfying when corporate nonsense gets turned back on an entitled customer. Wonder how many times she's tried to scam other stores like that. Total karma moment when she got nothing. When the lawyer steps in, The dad storming in to defend his kid's drill bit disaster is peak I'm a big shot energy. The way the salesman called his bluff about being a lawyer was gold, pointing out the warranty fine print and the cameras. Chef's kiss. I'm not sure if the impersonating a lawyer bit was legally accurate, but it sure shut the guy up fast. The coworkers, is that true? Question had me laughing. Love the honesty of I'm not a lawyer, I just winged it. This story's a great reminder that loud doesn't equal right. I'm a lawyer. This guy arguing over a 5-pence bag while bragging about being a lawyer is just embarrassing. Like you're out here making bank and throwing a tantrum over pocket change. The wife stepping in to pay and rolling her eyes was the best part. Bet she's used to his nonsense. The cashier's calm it's the law response was perfect, and the mental image of this guy returning home to explain he refunded a game over a bag fee is comedy gold. Why do people think I'm a lawyer makes them untouchable? Cringe city, refund my worn-out underwear. Okay, this one's gross and infuriating. Who brings back 5-month-old underwear and demands a refund? The manager highlighting the final sales stamp and pointing to the policy sign was such a mic drop moment. The guy's I know a lawyer threat fell so flat when the policy was literally staring him in the face. I'm with the narrator. Ew, used underwear? That's a hard pass. Love how the manager kept their cool and let the policy do the talking. Bet this guy's still mad somewhere. I'm a lawyer and you're committing fraud. This one's so awkward. The guy screaming about fraud over a price tag mix-up only to end up being the narrator's significant other's grandpa? Yikes. The manager's patience in explaining the price match policy while this guy rants about driving from the rich part of town is saint level. The twist at the family meeting is straight out of a sitcom. Imagine the silence at that dinner table. It's a great lesson in not throwing around I'm a lawyer unless you're ready to eat your words later. I know the owner and you're gonna be fired. The Weir Union line shutting down the gas pump lady's threat is iconic. I love how she thought I know the owner would magically fix her fuel points mess, only to get hit with the reality that there's no single owner to tattle to. The way she stormed off without even trying customer service is so telling. Bet she knew her argument was weak. This story's short but sweet, and it's so satisfying when entitled customers get outplayed like that. I am the owner, and you are no longer welcome here. This one's my favorite. The owner's fake rant about sleeping with Sid's wife to mess with the entitled lady is absolute genius. Debbie's struggle not to laugh, and the lady's red-faced exit are pure gold. The audacity of claiming to know the owner while yelling at the actual owner is next-level cluelessness. I'm sad the bakery's gone. Sounds like a fun place with a boss who knows how to handle Karens. Also, love the nod to the Super Bowl cakes. Makes me want one. I know the owner. He would be fine with me paying tomorrow. Fancy pants thinking she could walk out with $80 in groceries because she knows Farmer John is peak small-town scam energy. The cashier's firm pay-or-leave stance was perfect, and the fact that she magically found another card when pushed is so telling. The cherry on top is Farmer John not even recognizing her. Bet she was mortified. This story's a great reminder that name-dropping doesn't work when you're clearly bluffing. I'm tempted to try the pay tomorrow trick at GameStop too, lol. You're lying, I do know the owner. The chef owner slamming the door on the entitled bike group who didn't even bike is so satisfying. The lady's insistence that she knew the building owner, not the business owner, is such a desperate grasp at power. The chefs I got here at 2 a.m. I'm not dealing with this energy is relatable. And the way he shut her down without hesitation is chef's kiss, pun intended. Love how the whole staff was in on the moment, snickering in the background. Don't mess with a tired chef. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. See you guys in the next one.